This is Andy Tube. Today I was playing around with Trouble, this Singer Model 401A that I've been working on. I've got it pretty much finished up, and I was just doing some test sewing to make sure I had stuff adjusted right. And one of the test sews that I do is with a double needle. This machine, you can put two separate needles in, and let's see if I can show you that, and run two threads through the tension unit, and you can double needle. So later years they went to what's called a twin needle, where it has one post up in the needle clamp and then a little T-bar with two needles coming down. I don't know how well you can see. I was trying to put something behind there. Maybe there you can see twin needles, or double needle. Double needle. Okay, so anyway, the testing all went good and stuff, and then for some reason I got this crazy idea. What if I could put two threads on one needle? I'm not sure why anybody would want to do that, but I was just curious because one of the machines I bought had a top stitch needle in it that has a bigger eye, kind of a rectangular shaped eye. So I did. I put two threads through one needle and sewed, and it worked. And when you sew a double needle, you separate the threads, the two threads you're going to use, between the three tension discs. That's why there are three. But I just put the two threads together through one set of tension discs. Again, I'm just playing around. You know, how many test sews can you do in your life before they get boring, right? So, you know, I have my two threads, and I run them normally, except the tension unit, I put two threads between one set of discs, and down on this thread guides down here, what the instruction manual says is that you take one of the threads through the little slot on the actual needle clamp, this little slot right here, and then you take the second thread straight down to the needle and you bypass that. So I think you know where this is going now, right? You read the title to the video. I put two needles in here in the standard way, but I put two threads through each needle. And two of the threads do go through that little slot, and the other two threads bypass it, right? And then they go through all the thread guides in the normal path. And up on the tension unit, I put two threads between two of the discs, and the other two threads between the other two discs, you know, to separate them. So I kind of took the Singer's double needle sewing instructions and doubled them up. So these are the first two threads I did, and they both go through the same needle, which is on the left. And then I had to get two more threads. I didn't have any way to mount them, so I pulled out the arm cover screw that holds the arm cover, and I put this little barbecue stick down in the hole. This is a little like bamboo barbecue stick, and I just put two Class 66 plastic bobbins on there that had some thread. And then again, I routed them through the thread guide, through two other discs, you know, on the other side of the center disc here, and up, you know, through the check spring. All 4 threads go through there, and they go up to the take up lever, back down through all of the guides here. Whoa! So I'm a little crowded here with this little lamp. And then again, the first 2 threads to the needle on the left went through the slit, and my 2 bobbin spool, so to say, threads skip that, and they go through the needle on the right here. And with the threads, you can pick up the bobbin thread with, you know, like when you first thread one needle, or I just tested it using both needles with 4 threads, and it picked up my bobbin thread just fine. So I actually sewed a little bit on just a paper towel because I was amazed that it might work, you know. So, and it did. So I'm just kind of surprised. Now, I don't sew and I don't craft stuff. I just kind of work on the machines as a hobby. So there's sewists and crafters out there that have done maybe some double needle sewing and think, what could I do with extra threads in that pattern, or different colors? And I have like a red, a green, a blue, and a purple thread here. But I'm just going to sew some straight stitch here. I have a AK3 setting, which is just the normal AK3 setting. I'll do kind of a long stitch, I think. I'll do about a 7 or 8, just so that we can see the thread a little bit better, you know. Okay. I wish I'd have had a camera on my face when I first tried this. I was like, wow, it worked. So I have red and green in the left needle, on your left, and then purple and blue on the right. And what's interesting to me is the pattern. Now remember, this is straight stitch, right? But I'm making 4 needle holes in the fabric. And no, I'm making 2 needle holes with 4 threads in the fabric. So that bigger needle hole is kind of what makes the thread look a little zigzag, even though I'm sewing a straight stitch, right? Interesting to me, anyway. So let me show you a zigzag. Now with double needles, you can't sew the widest stitch. I don't remember, I didn't look in the manual, but you may be able to go to a 3.5 or 4. So I'm just setting it on 3, and I'll still use a longer stitch. Then I have to set this dials to B8 or BL for zigzag. And then let's see a zigzag. It looks like, let me look at this a little bit. It looks like I can go a little bit wider. I'm going to go to try 3.5. I don't want to break a needle, but let's see if it'll, I'll do it by hand first. Yeah, I can do a 3.5. Let's finish up with that. Oh, I never tried reverse. Let me reverse this here and see if it'll reverse. Whoops. Uh-oh. A little bit of trouble reversing, but I was I think off the fabric. Let's take a look at this. So there's really 5 threads here in this stitch because I have 4 needle threads and one bobbin thread. So there's my zigzag. Eee. And then here's the back. Look at that crazy pattern, huh? See those needle, all the needle threads kind of pulling through. But anyway, I just thought I would show that. It's kind of fun for me just to play with, because I am not a professional sewing machine mechanic or anything. I'm just, it's a hobby. I'm self-taught. I kind of did some repairs for people for money, but they were usually friends or acquaintance or something that said, hey, can you fix my machine? And I'd do it, and they'd give me a few bucks, but I never really, so. But let me go back to the straight stitch here. I tried sewing some patterns with some of the pattern discs or pattern cams, and my problem was that those double needle and 4 threads, most of them were too crowded, but some of them did work. But again, with a double needles, you can't get a big zigzag. And I was fooling around trying to sew a little bit of satin stitching zigzag, and it works if you don't try and get it too close together, because again, you got 4 threads instead of 1 or 2. But let's go with a little bit. I'm going to do the longest stitch and then make a very short stitch in straight. Forgot, I gotta start out with this because of the tension on the thread. And Singer said you should always start sewing with your take-up lever at the top, ready to come down. So there's a long stitch, and let me come up here and do about, according to the feed regulator, this should be about 20 stitches per inch. And now I'm going to try a reverse before I get to the end of that fabric to see if the reverse will work. Yeah, I just can't do that reverse. See that? It just jams everything up. I think there's too many threads going on in there. Because it's hard to see. Here's my stitch setting of 6, then when I stopped, and then the 20. I think at the end of the video I'll put this on my flatbed scanner and take a scan of it. Maybe it'll show up better, right? But let's see the back side now. So here was the long stitch, and again, even though it's sewing straight, it makes a zigzag back here. And then you can see when I got into the 20 stitches per inch. So, and I played around with the tension. I think part of that stitch on pattern on the bottom side is just because I have 2 threads between the tension discs, and maybe they're twisting up. It's having a little harder time clamping. Let me see. I'll attempt, the last thing I'll do here is I guess I'll try a satin stitch again. Okay. Now normally on the satin stitch you put this lever up into the area marked fine, and on the indicator plate, there's a slope inside that little finger tracks on, and you can slowly start fine-tuning to bring your stitches closer and closer together. So I think I'll just start at the bottom of that fine area, and I'll go back to BL for my zigzag and see if what kind of a satin type stitch. Now I don't have the special purpose foot, so they might the thread might get hung up on this presser foot, but we'll see. Wow, it's kind of a satin stitch already. I'm just going to give this let's see, maybe I'll do 1/2 of a turn and see if we can still sew. Okay, it's not piling up, so it's still going under the foot. I'm going to give it another 1/2 turn, because at some point they're going to start the threads overlapping and the stitch will get too tall to fit under this foot. I'll be darned. Wonder if I can go now to about a 3.5 and a little bit closer stitch. I'm estimating I'm at about 25 now. Interesting, huh? Okay. So that was about 20. See, it's approaching satin stitching, but you still see a little of the white fabric between the stitch here. And then this is when I got to about 21, and then I kept making it tighter and tighter. That's a pretty nice satin stitch there. Red-green on the bottom as you're looking at it, and purple-blue on the top. I don't know if this spotlight is any better than just my overhead light. So I will put this on the flatbed scanner and take, and this stuff like this is what happens when I try to sew, you know, like diamonds or balls, or I think maybe the icicle was halfway decent. But you have to set it for a pretty long stitch because you got 2 needles and 4 threads jamming the area up. Let's look at the back here. You can see on the back, not true satin stitch until I got up in here into the mid-20s more. Looks like a skip there. Because the hook, you know, think about it, that hook point is grabbing 4 needle threads. and it looks like there was a couple times there that it missed 1 or 2 of them. But amazing. It kind of makes me wish I knew how to sew and craft, because these machines are pretty phenomenal. But there you go. You may have never seen 2 needles with 4 threads on just a domestic sewing machine. And stay tuned, I'll do the scan. Thanks for watching. I'm just about finished. I'll be doing a final slide show of trouble pretty soon. Take care of yourselves in these crazy times, huh?